It has gotten a little bit warmer outside now, and spring flowers are already starting to pop up everywhere in my yard. Which reminds me, it's time for me to make some more paper flowers. So I'm going to start with the first thing I saw growing in my yard. And this flower is one that I like almost as much as my hydrangeas, the beautiful Hyacinth. So stay with me as I attempt to make my version of a colorful hyacinth bouquet using coffee filter paper. Now this project may be a little difficult because the hyacinth is made up of 20 to 40 little flowers. And unlike my hydrangeas, these flowers are bigger and they're very distinctive. So each one will have to be made. And it may take some time, but I'm going to try to figure out the quickest and easiest way to recreate these flowers so that you can make them too. Now the hyacinth flower comes in a large range of colors, and this image here is exactly what I'm shooting for my bouquet. These are really soft pastel colors, soft but they're rich and colorful. And I think this will be beautiful for a bouquet. So that's what we'll try to make, something that looks like this. For this project, I'm using white coffee filters, wooden skewers, flexible garden wire, a styrofoam block, fabric dye, watercolor paint and brush, a pencil, and scissors. To put the pieces together, I'm using craft glue and the hot glue gun. Okay, I want to start by making the base of my flowers, the stem and the leaves. And for that, I'm going to have to dye my coffee filters green. So I'm going to pull out a stack of coffee filters. And this time I'm going to try using fabric dye. I usually use food coloring, but I found some fabric dye in the store. There wasn't green, so I'm going to mix blue and yellow together. And by the way, this is synthetic fabric dye, so we'll just see how it turns out. I'm going to mix equal parts blue and yellow to make green. And right now, it doesn't look green at all. It just looks sort of grayish black. So I'm going to put some water in here and soak some of the coffee filters. And it is still looking really gray. So I don't know. I'll leave this in for a few minutes and see if it starts turning green. I'll add a little more blue and yellow. And I added a little more water. So let me just, it's starting to look a little more green. I'm just going to wring this out a little bit. That does look more green, but it's still pretty gray. So I'm going to put these on a pan to dry in the oven, and we'll see what the color looks like when it's dry. I sort of separate these on the pan, and then I put them in the oven for about 15 minutes at 350 degrees. But before I put those in the oven, I wanted to also dye some sheets with the food coloring just to compare the difference. With this, I'm using white and natural sheets just to get some variation so I can compare all the different options. So I'm going to separate the stacks out and put them in the oven. And this is what they look like when they come out dry. The fabric dye did dry more green than it looked when I was mixing it, but it's also more consistent. All those sheets are one color, as opposed to the food coloring. The sheets are too yellow and they're not consistent. There's some dark ones at the top, and then it goes to light. It doesn't always dye the sheets all the way through. The brown ones didn't come out at all. They're just all brown. With no green, and this is with the food coloring. So it looks like I'm going to use the fabric dyed sheet. So I would say the fabric dye gives you a more consistent color throughout, but I would try to get the exact color when you buy it instead of mixing it. The store didn't have the green at the time, but I'll try to leave a link to the green fabric color in the description box below. Okay, now I can start making my flowers. I'm going to use this green garden tie, and I'm going to cut pieces at about 10 inches. I got this garden tie actually from Dollar Tree. I found it there, but usually I get this from the hardware store. The wire on this one is a little bit thinner or flimsier, but this should work okay for stems. Okay, so to have something to attach the flowers to at the top of the stem, I want to make some strips about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 4 inches long. So I'm just going to make marks, 1/2 inch marks on this styrofoam and draw lines. And then I'm going to use a knife to just cut all the way down another 1/2 inch on the side, and I'm going to cut strips out of this piece. I think I'll make about 6 flowers, so I'll cut 6 pieces right now, and these pieces are 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 4 inches. Now I'm going to take a skewer and poke a hole right at the bottom of this styrofoam. Now I cut the flexible wire to make the stems so that the flower will be movable and flexible, but if you want a straight stem you could use a skewer. And I'll actually do one here with a straight hard stem. So what I'm doing is I want to cover the stem and the top piece with the green paper to make it look more like a real stem. So I tore the coffee filter paper in half, and with the craft glue I'm going to brush it on 1/2 of the paper. I'm going to take the stem piece and pretty much start to wrap it with that paper. And I'm rolling it, and I'm going to brush glue on the outside as I roll the paper around the piece. So you want to just keep wrapping it and rolling the paper around as you glue it, sort of like you're decoupaging the whole piece. And this is what that base piece will look like. Now for the flexible stems, I'll start the same way. I'm going to poke a hole in the bottom with a skewer and I'm going to push it in about 1 inch up. And then I'm going to put some hot glue inside that hole. And then stick one of my flexible stems inside. And then I'll wrap these the same way. And you know, this paper is looking more and more green as I work with it. I don't know if it's because it's mixed with the glue or what, but it's almost perfect now. Looks really natural. And unlike the other one, this one I'll be able to bend the stem, so if I wanted it to curve over a vase or something, it'll be flexible enough to do that. So I'll just finish off the rest of them and make them all flexible stems. So while all the stem bases are drying, I'm going to cut out some leaves for my stems. So the hyacinth has about 4 to 6 long spiky leaves that are at the bottom of the plant. So I'll just take a stack of 6 sheets of the green paper, and I'm going to draw 4 leaves on the top sheet. I'll cut those out so I'll have 4 leaves per flower. Now I'm going to take each of those stacks and I'm going to fold them in half to give the leaves some dimension because they sort of curl inward. And I'll just take one of each different shape leaf for each flower. And this time I'll use the hot glue to attach the leaves to the flower. I'm putting a line of glue towards the bottom of the leaf and I'm wrapping that around and sort of closing it together in the front. I'm gluing the next leaf directly in front of that one. And as I do this, I'm sort of staggering the height of the leaf, but I want the leaves to, a couple of them to come up into the head of the flower. And the next two leaves I'll do the same thing, but I'm gluing those around the sides of the first two. Then you can go back and brush on a little glue around the edges of the outside of the leaves to just sort of blend them in with the stem. Now, just so you know, each of these flowers do grow out of a bulb. So normally it would have a bulb right at the bottom of the leaves. I'm not going to create a bulb on this because I want to use this inside a vase as a bouquet. And normally if the flower is this long, if the stems are this long, the leaves would be all the way at the bottom and you wouldn't be able to see them. I want the leaves to be seen in my vase, so they're up a lot higher than they should be and the stem is a lot longer than it should be. Anyway, I'm going to finish the rest of my stems and set those aside while I work on my flowers. So to make my little flowers that make up the big flower, I'm going to use 8 coffee filter sheets. One sheet will make 4 little flowers, so I'm making 32 of these. I drew and cut out a petal shape. This petal is about 1.5 inches long by 3/8 inches wide. And I'm going to use this to make a template for my petals. I have a piece of cardstock that I just cut and I'm going to place the petal on here. But first I want to draw a circle at the bottom, and this circle is about 1 inch across. I want that petal right at the top and the center of that circle. I'm going to come in about 1/8 of an inch into the circle, and then I'm going to draw around that petal. And then I'm going to take that petal at the same point, the same bottom point, and rotate it about 60 degrees on both sides and draw 2 more petals. And I'll have something that looks like a pineapple. Now I'm going to cut this out to use as a template for my coffee filters. Now I'm going to start with 4 of the 8 sheets. And I'm using 4 because it'll be easier to cut 4 sheets instead of 8. I'm going to fold it in half and fold it in half again and fold it in half one more time. I'm going to draw a line at about 2 inches, dividing this in half. I'm going to place my shape near the top of the filter, and the bottom part I'm going to cut off where that line is. Make sure you save the bottom half of the coffee filter because I'm going to use that, and the top half I'm going to trace this half pineapple shape. Now right now it looks like a crown, but I want each leaf to be separate, so I'm going to draw a line going down in between the 2 pieces, almost down to the circle. But I'll remember that I need to cut in between the petals to separate them. Now I can start cutting this shape out. And one thing is I do need the side pieces here. I need some of these scraps to make this flower. So I'm going to put these scraps that I cut from the side of the petal over in the corner. Then I'm going to continue cutting this piece and cut all the way down to that line almost to the circle at the bottom, and then around the centerpiece. I'm going to discard these scraps right here. I don't need these little pieces here, so I'm going to draw those out. I don't need the ones at the top, but I will keep the pieces, the long pieces on the side. So I'm going to put these in the same pile as the other one. So these are the pieces I need. I need this triangular piece, I need these scrap pieces, and I need this piece, which is half of my petals for each flower. These are all lined up. I'm going to divide them into 4 stacks, about 4 pieces each. And I'm going to use my skewer to curl the petals. I'm going to curl these towards the back. I'm going to start at the very tip, put my hand on that, and then press it around really tightly and curl it all the way down to the bottom. And I'll have a group of petals that's curled outward. I'm going to do this to each of the 3 petals in each group. So I'll do the same thing to the other 4 filters, because altogether I need 8 filters to make 32 flowers. Also, when you cut these out, you want to cut right on the inside of the line so that the pencil mark won't show up. Of course, you have the line on the inside to separate the petals. So what I do is just kind of erase those lines. So that's what you might want to do if you have pencil marks on it, because each of these petals are going to be used. So right now I'm just going to set this group aside before I curl the petals, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with the other pieces. So with the bottom pieces, the triangle shapes, I'm going to use this for the inside of the flowers. While these pieces are still folded, I'm cutting slits that are about maybe 1/4 of an inch long and 1/16 of an inch apart, all the way across the bottom part of that triangle. So I'm making this fringe, and I'm going to do this on both pieces, the 2 stacks of 4. And what I want to do next is paint the fringes. I'm going to use my watercolor paint. The hyacinth flowers I'm making right now are going to be white, so with the white flowers, the inside is yellow, the pistil and the pieces that are in the center of the flower. So I'm going to paint these fringes strong yellow color. And I'm painting both of these. I'm going to unfold them and paint on both sides just to make sure the yellow paint goes all the way through to all the fringes. By the way, this watercolor set I also picked up at Dollar Tree. I see they're adding a lot more crafting products. They have Mod Podge and a lot of different crafting tools and pieces. Okay, I'm going to let these dry completely. I'm actually going to sit these under a fan, and while they're drying, I'm going to continue to curl the petals of the rest of my pieces. So now I have my dried fringes. What I'm going to do now is open them up. I'm going to cut this piece in half, and I'm going to do that to both pieces, and then stack them together. And now I want to cut the fringes in 4s. So it's already folded in 4, so I'm just going to use my scissors and cut along the lines. And that'll give me 4 stacks of fringes, and this is at least 32 pieces, so probably twice as much. Now I have everything ready to assemble my flowers. So let's start by taking one of the fringe pieces and one of the scrap pieces. I'm using the scrap piece to make a bulge at the bottom of the flower. So I'm going to place this scrap piece at the bottom, and I'm going to roll it inside the triangle shape. I'm rolling 1, 2, 3 times, and then I want to roll the fringes around inside itself. So I'm going to roll so that the fringes are on the inside and the scrap piece that I rolled up is on the outside. And I'm pressing the fringes together as I roll it real tightly at the top. Then I'm going to put a little hot glue on that flap and close it up. Next, I'll take 2 pieces of the petal cutouts, and I'm going to position this so that the curled petals are facing outward. And with the first sheet, I'm going to place a line of hot glue right at the bottom in the center. Then I'm going to glue that fringe yellow piece right there in the center at the bottom. I'm going to put 2 drops of hot glue on each side of the flaps, and then I'm going to fold those flaps around the centerpiece. Then I want to press and squeeze those 3 petals together so that they're only on that one side. Then with the next piece, I'm going to put another line of hot glue right at the bottom in the center and turn that first piece over and glue it to the center of the second piece at the bottom. Also, I'm going to glue the flaps around that entire piece and take my 3 petals from the second and squeeze those together on the other end. So now I want to position the petals so that they're somewhat evenly spaced. And after I get them in the right position, I'm going to squeeze those petals upward, almost over the center part, and squeeze it together so that the centerpiece is kind of tucked in and the petals are slightly above the centerpiece. And there I have my first flower for my hyacinth. It's flute shaped and has a little bulge at the bottom. Now I'm just going to repeat this again till I have 32 flowers. Okay, I am finishing off my last flower. I have 32 little flowers and I'm ready to attach them to the base with the stem and leaves. So let's do that now. So that I get these flowers spaced correctly, I am going to just mark where I want to glue my flower pieces. And I think what I'm going to do is do 4 pieces evenly spaced on the flat surfaces. I'm just going to mark where I want to glue these pieces down. So on all 4 flat sides, I'm going to glue them in the same position on each side, and then on the corner sides, I'm going to glue flowers sort of staggered in between the flowers that are on the flat sides, like this. So let's just start gluing those down. I'm going to put a good amount of hot glue, and then I'm going to take the flower and just hold it in position for about 5 seconds. Now the top flower, I want to tilt it up a little bit so it's at an angle going upward just slightly, like that. The next 2 pieces I'm going to glue just straight on. And again, I just hold it there for about 5 seconds. And this is just straight. And the last one at the bottom, I'm going to angle downward just a little bit. As you see here, it's angled downward. The bottom one and the 2 sides are straight, and the top one is angled upward. So I'm going to do the same for each flat side. So I have to put in 4 flowers on each flat side, evenly spaced. I'm going to now put flowers on the corner sides and for this I'm going to put 3 flowers in between each of the other flowers that are on the flat surface. So you're gluing 4 flowers on the flat surfaces on each side and 3 flowers on the corner surfaces on each side. So that'll give you a total of 28 flowers, and you'll have 4 left for the top. Now it would be great if I had 5 flowers left. I could put 4 at the corners and 1 at the top, but I only have 4 left, so I'm going to position these where needed. I'm going to make sure I put 1 at the very top, and then I'll just see where I really need the flowers to go. So there's a nice space here. I'm going to put that sort of at an angle at the top, and then there's a nice opening right here. And then what you can do is go back and curl some of those petals that have gotten straight, and that'll help hide some of the spots and also shape the piece, make it more rounded. And here is my beautiful hyacinth flower. Now, since I wanted to make a nice bouquet of some pastel colored hyacinths, I looked in my bag where I had some filters that I dyed from other projects, and pulled out some that I may be able to use. I did find a nice orange and a yellow. I also wanted a purple, a violet color, so I'm going to use this fabric dye again. I did get some violet colored dye, and I'm going to dye some of the filters to see if I can get a nice violet color. So I'm making a violet, an orange, and a yellow. For the violet, I'm painting the inside fringe a darker violet. For the yellow, I'm doing a yellow green, and the orange will be a darker red orange center. Another way you can color these is to paint the petals individually before you assemble them. I brushed on a strip of purple on these flowers on the sheets before I put it together. This one I used a peachy color. A lot of the hyacinths have a stripe colored petal, which could be really beautiful. So if you do have time, you can paint each of the pieces before you assemble them. Now, another way you can add color to these flowers is to paint them after you assemble them. Like I said, I wanted to have a nice pastel color with this white one. I'm going to brush on a sort of peachy color. I'm using my watercolor, and it's very diluted, so I'm just going to brush color on the petals. And after it completely dries, I get a nice, very pastel, lush color. But of course, if you do paint them this way, after they dry, you will have to reshape the petals. Curl them again, because the water from the watercolor will sort of remove the shape of the petals. But you'll just have to go in and go around and shape a few of them. But I do love this color. I love the soft, blushy color of this. And here are all the pieces I made. I did make and add a few more leaves because I wanted some of those spiky leaves to show up a little bit higher in my vase. I am displaying these in my crystal beaded vase, and I think they turned out absolutely beautiful. And I think I was able to get pretty close to the colors and the look that I wanted. Now, I know this project is more tedious and will take more time than most of my coffee filter flowers, so I will be doing an instruction booklet with templates, and I'll have that up on my Etsy store. If not by the time I post this video, I will have it up a week after. So you can look for that if you want detailed instructions and templates for this project. But I do know these beautiful, colorful pastel flowers will be just perfect on my Easter table this year. Hey guys, I just added new items to my Etsy store with free shipping. And if you need more detailed instructions on some of these projects, for just a few dollars, you can get instant digital downloads of full color step-by-step instructions with templates for some of your favorite projects. And check out my Amazon page where you can pick up my multi-surface acrylic metallic paint, back in stock with 8 beautiful shimmering colors. You can mix millions of colors and create endless home beauty for indoor and outdoor projects. And while you're there, pick up my Book of Elegant Home Crafts Volume 1 with all your favorite projects together in one big, beautiful, colored, step-by-step instruction book. On my Amazon page, you'll see all my favorite crafting tools and supplies used on this show, and you can add them all to your cart for the one-click, fast and easy shopping and delivery convenience of Amazon. I'll be working every day to make crafting fun and easy for you. Follow me at Your House of Home and Your House of Home TV on all social media for extra home, food, and gardening tips.